Grading test is not intended for children, especially if you still want them to believe in Santa. There is likely to be strong language and adult themes. So, decide to have a special discussion here on a topic that's not even terribly popular with a lot of atheists, that having telling children about the Santa myth can actually have downsides to it. So, for this discussion, I've invited Godless Granny and Pirate Kitty.
Hello.
Pirate Kitty, why don't you say a bit about yourself? You've been kind of quiet for so long that a lot of the people watching might not know who you are.
Oh yeah, I don't recognize any voices, any names yet that are in chat. But hello, I'm Pirate Kitty. I've been around, but um, COVID and all that's made my mind just go bleh. So I've been partaking in a lot of escapism into video games. So I've just been playing my games and going to work and trying not to kill someone. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't kill anyone. I'm on Twitter, but I don't post much because generally when I try and post, I end up saying things that I don't mean to say, and I have a tendency of being misunderstood a lot because I'm not a very good text communicator. So I only try and reply when I'm being supportive of someone or something.
Yeah, Pirate Kitty has a YouTube channel, which will be in the description here. She hasn't produced a lot of videos, but I do have to say, especially last year for organizing the Christmas marathon, she was doing the bulk of the work and getting the schedule together. So she, tend to do a lot of stuff behind the scenes for people.
Yeah, I try and help out when I can. I can't do the whole editing content thing. I just don't have the time for it.
And Granny, do you want to say a bit to introduce yourself? Though I think you probably know you.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, I think so. Hello, I'm Godless Granny. I have a channel as well. I have a lot of content on it. I usually produce one edited video every week, and I usually do one live stream every week. The video that I've got coming out this week, which actually is uploading as we speak, the original upload failed from a few hours ago. Actually has a little bit in it that we're going to be covering here today.
Okay, so a bit of a preview for your next video here, huh?
Yep.
Okay, in the side chat, I'm seeing Commander 401, Mark Short, and Mage Grey Wolf. So, yeah. Oh, and Demon Orb, hello. So, yeah, mostly I just kind of wanted to address that a lot of people, well, I guess most people think the Santa mythology is at least harmless, if not, something that's fun with the kids. And my experience was that, we were a large family. My dad was a carpenter, so, tradesman, he made decent money, but certainly never rich, which pretty much put us at the bottom of the economic tier where we lived. So we got all the stuff about, if you're good, Santa will bring you presents, and if you're bad, he won't. And yet all the time growing up, it was the kids at school who were complete assholes who always got 10 times as much as I did.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I never thought about this as I was growing up. But as an adult, I've just really scratched my head over why does anyone think that Santa is a good person? That he's kind of the champion of children when clearly he brings lots of presents to the rich children and little or nothing to the poor children. And as a child, I just always assumed that all children got the same thing that I got for Christmas. It was essentially, everyone got about the same presents. Um, by the time I was 6, I no longer believed in Santa. So by the time I thought about the fact that, hey, why are the rich kids getting so much, the poor kids getting so little? I didn't believe in Santa already, so it just didn't click that was something about Santa that we should, why care about Santa? And but when my kids came along, by then I was a very strong believer, and I didn't want anything interfering with their faith and their religious beliefs. And so I was of the opinion that I didn't want to lie to my kids and tell them that Santa existed, because I said, if I tell them Santa is real, the Easter Bunny is real, the Tooth Fairy is real, and Jesus is real, and then they grow up, they're going to discover that Santa isn't real, the Easter Bunny isn't real, the Tooth Fairy isn't real, they're going to think that Jesus isn't real either. So, I want to raise them telling them the truth. So I did. One of my children wanted to believe in Santa and said, "Well, can't we just pretend?" And I said, "Absolutely. We can pretend that Santa's real." And that's what we did. We always knew that there was no Santa. Santa wasn't real, but we just pretended.
Well, and that's fine, if they know it's pretend. I mean, it's common for kids to have an imaginary friend, and it can be fun for the parents to play along with that, as long as they realize that it's, just playing an imaginary game.
Mm-hmm.
One of my little ones wanted to be convinced that we had a dinosaur following us around all the time.
That's funny.
Jenny, I dropped you a link. Sorry about that. I thought you were... Hi. I thought I'd
Hi,
already
Jenny.
put a link where you would find it, but I guess I was negligent on that.
Good evening.
I'm
Hello.
getting some glare off my glasses, and I'm trying to rearrange my lights so that
Hello, Junie.
it's not working.
Yeah, I did see the little rings in the top of your glasses there.
So we're talking about Santa, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the
Santa
other thing I ran into
baby.
growing up was that I lived in a heavily Jewish community,
Mm.
and Santa did not stop at the homes of the Jewish kids either, and that seemed weird. It's like, why was he passing up, really most of my friends at that point?
I don't know the whole lore of Santa, or the backstory, I should say, because they haven't finished the book yet. One of the greatest resources we have in this area is Wisconsin Public Radio, and they do this show every day at noon called Chapter a Day, where they read a chapter out of a book that they've chosen. They're reading one out of a book that the guy who's been running the show for 35 years never heard of. And that I wasn't aware that existed either. It's by a guy by the name of, Frank Baum. Does anybody know who that is? He wrote a little series about some shark guy behind a curtain in Oz.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, he also wrote this book about the life and times of Santa Claus.
Mm.
And it tells the story of Santa Claus from his very beginning, when he was found as an infant on the doorstep of the King of the Woods, who's of course got all their wood nymphs and other people flying around taking care of all the living things, all the trees, all the grass, all the animals, and all that kind of good stuff. And Santa is raised in this mythical, enchanted forest setting, never knowing about other human beings existing, much less children. And he once he's reached kind of adulthood, they let him go off on his own, and he settles in a place called Laughing Valley. And in Laughing Valley, he realized that he was going to have to, farm and raise food and raise animals and all those kinds of, and all the wood nymphs and that sort of folk came to his rescue and said, no, we'll take care of all that. You just live and enjoy yourself. Wow, cool, hey? So Santa proceeded to start doing that and spending his days appreciating nature and laughing.
Yeah.
And then he discovered children. And he was absolutely transfixed. And careful, it's not going there. He's not Catholic. And I missed a chapter, so I kind of got a little blank here. He gets involved with children, and the fact that they are poor, that all these children he meets are absolutely threadbare, that their parents could barely afford to eat, much less get presents. And it doesn't talk about presents in terms of Christmas. It just talks about presents. And Santa is happy to make children spend all day making toys for poor children. And he just begins to do this out of his compassion for these poor kids. And then one day, a little rich girl showed up, and he had no idea what rich meant. He didn't even understand money. He didn't understand economy. He didn't understand anything, but poor people have nothing, and children are sad, and they need toys to be happy. And this little rich girl, this was today's chapter, complains to Santa that, well, I need toys too. My parents won't let me have any toys. And Santa says, well, sometime during the chapter has figured out what rich is all about, and basically tells the little girl, fuck off, you're rich, you don't need anything from me. And decided that he should go back, check with the king of the forest and ask about this. And the king of the forest response was, well, are they not children?
Mm.
And basically that was it. Are they not children? And Santa saw it in a different light, and ever since then has made toys for all the children of the world, regardless of income. And we've corrupted even that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'd like
I'm
to
sorry,
get
I'm
to
back.
Major's comment here, because this is another thing about, about the Santa myth, is kind of the big brother aspect of that. It's somebody constantly always watching, which of course, with the Christians, the
Right up
belief
their
that God
alley.
is always watching and sees everything everyone does. It's kind of watering that down for children, but yeah, it is kind of creepy to think that you're constantly under surveillance.
Mm-hmm. So before I had to run away for a second, I heard you saying exactly basically what I wanted to talk about was the fact that, growing up, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and we got Christmas, but we never got like what good kids would get. The girl down the street who picked on me 24/7 at school's getting a Nintendo, and I'm getting socks. So, and I know she's not a good person. I know she shouldn't be on the good list. So why is she getting these things? Well, obviously, I can't believe that that's real anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think is there has been a push I've seen. It comes up every Christmas time on Facebook where people are like, hey, if you're going to do the Santa thing, at least give the kids minor things and say those are for Santa, and the big things you should say are from yourself. That way the poor kids don't feel left out, so to speak. And I think that that's not a bad idea, but can't tell anybody what to do anyways.
That's something my parents did. Most of the presents said that they were from them or from relatives, and then there were usually two things that said they were from Santa. And the silly part was that my parents continued to do that until we were young adults.
Well, it's when I was helping raise kids, they were all these kids that my partner had before I had met them, so I didn't have as much say in things, and a couple of them I had to just go along with their mother for. So in those instances, I tried more to, I enjoyed doing the Christmas stocking, which just a lot of little presents that way, and mostly just stuck to Santa filling the stockings, and any of the boxes under the tree were from us.
Mm-hmm.
I, Granny, you know how much I respect you.
Mm-hmm.
You thought Santa was real till you were like 14, 15, 16? Huh?
No. I said till I was 6. But my
Oh,
parents
oh, oh.
continued putting Santa on saying the presents were from Santa, even though they knew we didn't believe anymore.
Oh, okay. So the parents
my-
had the problem.
Right.
No, my parents still do that. My parents still did that up until 2019. If there was a present that was like, it usually was me or my brother. It was somebody who wasn't living in the household. We would get a gift and it was from Santa, but it was basically just the one gift we were getting from the family that all lived in that house together. So like my mom and dad and my sister would send us a gift and it would be from Santa, but it was basically just everybody in the house and we were just going to get the one gift, which is fine. I'm not complaining or anything.
Yeah, I
Nick's
had
got a
it
call.
figured out, I know, before I was 10 years old, but I think there continued to be stuff labeled from Santa until I was at least 14. But then
Jeez.
in my household, things were constantly going over, and there were always some younger kids, being brought into things too.
Well, yeah, that's different. But I
See,
was
I don't think
25 before my parents. No, that's.
I
You were
think
20
Well, real. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say I think it wouldn't be such a big deal if parents didn't work so hard to reinforce it. Like,
Mhm.
when when your kid starts asking questions and they start putting together that Santa's not real, well, maybe that's the time to let them, work it out and just be like, well, what do you think? Instead of, oh, no, that's
Exactly.
making extra excuses to try and keep them believing in something.
Mhm. Yeah, try be mysterious about it. Ask them what they think, and well, do you think that's possible? I don't know. That might make a good paper. You want to write a paper on how far Santa would have to travel to get presents to all the children in one night?
Right.
Take a bit of research, but they could learn something too.
Encourage them to figure out that it's not real on their own,
Exactly.
rather than waiting for
Exactly.
someone to tell them it's not true.
For us, what happened was I was 4 when my oldest brother went to kindergarten, and kids at school told him there was no Santa, and he came home and told us there was no Santa. And so we went to Mom and said, Mom, John said there's no Santa. And Mom said, no, John is wrong. The kids at school told him wrong. There really is a Santa. So we continued to believe in Santa until I got to school. And then at age, 5, 6, once I met kids at school that told me there was no Santa, then I knew that Mom was lying. John was right all along.
Hmm.
Yeah, Commander had this.
Santa is also, I think, a great lesson for children to learn the evolution of a lie. Because when you get into that questioning period, well, but how does he go up and down the chimney? Was my question, because I could see the chimney's only like 8 inches square.
Mm-hmm.
How the hell? And then it goes to the furnace. What's Santa doing in the furnace? Does he come up through the vents then, or what? And so you ask the question about that, and well, what about this, and then what about that, and the parents trying to hang on to it will keep evolving their answers, just like flat earthers. They have to keep coming up with a lie to make their lie work. And that's basically what I think you're teaching a child, is how to lie effectively.
Hmm.
How to squirm out of it when you're caught in a lie.
Mm-hmm.
I hear the same thing all the time from apologists.
Where are you from, Commander 401, that you don't have Santa or Christmas, if I might ask?
Possibly Russia. They have Father Christmas, but they for a long time under the Soviet rule, they weren't allowed to celebrate Christmas, so they moved Christmas to New Year's. And oh nope, Jewish. Okay,
Ah,
that makes sense too.
Yeah, since my mother's side of the family is Finnish, it was usually referred to as being Father Christmas more than Santa. So, I knew that the red Santa was the Coca-Cola version.
wait, what did they finish? Sorry, I had to.
I was going to make a joke about the fact that his family was finished.
Well, actually, they finished off the town that they lived in before they moved here.
And I apologize. I just misgendered
mine-
you. Sorry, Purple.
Mine had a little Norwegian in them.
Ooh, I think I did too. Sorry.
That's okay. I know it. It's going to take people time to adjust. But so I was very used to a lot of the decorations having, Santa as the green man in winter,
Mm,
rather than always being the red and white suit.
Originally, he was blue,
really?
Blue?
and white. Yeah, which I think would be much more attractive than with this red. I mean, red's cool and all, but geez, you really want to draw attention to yourself when you're trying to sneak all around the world and
Yeah,
be hidden
red
and
is-
give presents?
Red
it's
really is a hey, look
not
at
a
me
good
color.
color choice.
Good point.
Well,
I think it's
blue
interesting also how Western culture has settled on Santa Claus, or so much of Western culture has settled on Santa Claus, when there is, even within Western culture, other ceremonies that seem to take precedence. I know for a fact that one of the most outrageous I've heard of, and outrageously funny, is this in let's see, Catalan region of Spain. They have this thing where there's a instead of Santa Claus, there's a guy who poops.
Oh goodness.
and they celebrate the guy pooping. It's supposed to represent the fertilization of the grounds that the crops can grow. But that's just very curious. And it's real. They have little statuettes of a guy crapping and just all kinds of different things built up around it. It's just
But
outrageously funny.
Human poop is not very good fertilizer. Is it?
Well, who knows what they did back then.
I know that I read a biography or an autobiography written by a woman who was from North Korea, and she was saying that the government kept urging them to poop more because they were collecting human excrement and using it for fertilizer. But the one thing the government didn't seem to get is that if you want people to poop more, you have to give them something to eat first.
Oh, that's not cool.
In communist China, there were also promoted policies of reusing human waste. They called it using night soil.
Mm-hmm.
Well, aren't those areas also predominantly vegetarian mostly? Like they don't eat a lot of meat, and if they do, it's fish usually, right?
Well,
Or am I?
That's true.
well,
I mean,
being
so that's why animal, like we use cow and horse poop as fertilizer because they eat grains. So if we were on a vegetarian diet, wouldn't it be almost the same anyways? I don't know.
It breaks down into nitrogen, and it's the nitrogen that you need. And I don't know that there's any difference in breaking down into nitrogen as to whether it is a plant-based or a meat-based soil.
I don't know, but this is a discussion about Santa Claus, which is a pile of shit, but
Right.
we should probably get
yeah,
back
that's
to
true. We are getting off topic there.
What really bothers me about the current Western Santa Claus is this whole thing about how I believe it was Western Europe that developed it into it in the backstory that Frank Baum wrote, which I assume eventually works up into the common Western idea of Santa Claus, Saint Nick, is how religion was conflated with Santa Claus. And I imagine that's the same kind of crap that they pulled up, just stealing Christmas in general from Saturnalia and other things.
Student Dr. Ben is in the chat now, and Ben would probably know the answer to the question that we just asked a few minutes ago, which was, does human waste decompose into nitrogen just as easily if it is comprised of plant material as opposed to meat material. If you've got a primarily meat-based diet or an all plant-based diet, does the human waste break down into nitrogen just as easily from either material? So we'll see if Ben knows that one.
Yeah, most of the general Santa myth that we know now
It's almost
is
all
actually
from
mostly pretty
Coca-Cola.
recent. That much of it came from, the poem "A Visit from Saint Nick" or "The Night Before Christmas," which I forget who the author was now, but it was made into a book that was specifically given out by the Macy's department stores to promote their Christmas thing.
Clement Clark Moore is the name.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, also
Well-
I remember hearing it had a lot to do with Coca-Cola too, and that's why Santa wears red is because
Even the
Coke is-
Coca-Cola thing came a bit later,
Mhm.
but the whole thing of Santa and the 8 reindeer was all from The Night Before Christmas. That there really
Yep.
wasn't any mention of even how many reindeer, let alone them having names before that point. So, it's really so much of it really was early 20th century that most of what we know about Santa wasn't even part of the backstory before the 20th century.
Well, Christmas in itself was not celebrated heavily by the Christian church up until I believe the mid 1800s or so. That until then it was just another religious holiday that would pass.
Yeah, there was even a period during the Puritan times that celebrating Christmas was outlawed.
That doesn't surprise me. They have a problem with
I
just about
forget
everything.
exactly when that was. I'm thinking that was like around 1680 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to look it up again, though. But yeah, in several of the original colonies, that celebrating Christmas had been outlawed because the Puritans felt it had too many pagan roots.
Yeah, one thing-
1647 it says.
One thing that's kind of weird about the Puritans is their intent in moving to America was to try to start a kind of a heaven on earth. They wanted to start a colony that was only for Puritans. Nobody could enter except Puritans. And you hear so many people talk about how, oh, the Pilgrims came over here because they wanted religious freedom. No, they didn't. They wanted religious freedom only for themselves.
Yeah, they wanted to be free from the Church of England, but they
Right.
wanted to start their own colonies based on their own churches.
Yep.
Although it is true that the Puritan religion, the organizations, the people behind it, the leaders, were sought after by England and arrested and brought back and tried and imprisoned and stuff for various so-called crimes. Before the Puritans came to America, they tried to set up a colony in Copenhagen, I believe, was the center of it. And eventually they decided they didn't like living there because people just didn't treat them as they wanted to be treated. And that's when they started putting their money together and taking a cab to North America, basically. But Purple's completely right that it was to set up their, or I mean, Grady's completely right. It was to set up their own Puritan only colony to
There we go.
get rid of everybody else but them. And they're still up to it.
In 1659, the Puritan government in Massachusetts Bay Colony banned Christmas.
It's
Sorry,
the
Jen.
original war on Christmas.
Well, that's because they invented
Perpetrated by
Thanksgiving.
Next time someone accuses atheists of having a war on Christmas, we ought to say, hey, the Puritans started it. You guys are the originators of the war on Christmas.
Well, it's just so angering that the whole corruption of the concept. I think the concept of Christmas, not by the word Christmas because that implies Christ. The idea of having a holiday where the children are being gifted in whatever way we can is perfectly fine, and it's sad that poor kids can't take part in it as much as better off kids, but the concept of having a holiday geared at children, I think, is a good one. Gifting maybe shouldn't be part of that, but celebration of kids is a good idea.
Well,
But it
I like
really
the
bothers me
celebration of
how
kids. I
Western,
just, the
how
Santa thing, just because it so much really points out the discrepancy between the haves and the have-nots. That I don't want that. I don't like the idea that people tell kids that whether or not they're getting something is linked to their behavior, when it's actually linked to their parents' income.
as I was going to try and finish saying that as it's come to the Western cultures, or actually moved further west, or let's see, right, left, yeah, west. That capitalism got a hold of it, and you're talking about Coca-Cola and those guys. They've just corrupted the whole thing into this massive, capitalistic splurge at the end of the year that we all know about, and Black Friday, blah blah blah. That for me is the most immoral thing about Christmas, is that it's become this just let's celebrate abject materialism and damn everybody else's needs. And yeah, there's Salvation Army. Salvation Army's stealing your money from you and going around to other parts of the world and writing laws against gay people. And that's what you're funding when you're funding Christmas. It's, get a grip. And yeah, churches do some generous things, and community groups do generous things, but oh, that's funny. It's just corrupted, and it makes me mad. Do you know what a Christmas tree is up to almost $100? I just found that out recently. I've never bought a Christmas tree. I just couldn't believe it that they're up that much.
I haven't got a live tree in about 20 years just because I became concerned about the environmental impact of hacking down all those trees every year.
I bought a 7 foot artificial one probably 25 years ago, and we've used it almost every year. It's starting to shed pretty badly. So a couple years ago, we bought a new smaller one, and we used that one last year. But this year, I forgot that we had that one, and I asked Robin to get out the big one, and we've got the big one back up. And so yeah, Robin says, I don't remember a Christmas when we didn't have this tree.
It sure was fun as a kid, though, decorating the tree and all the bubble electric ornaments that are ready to burn your house down, and the tinsel that's giving you lead poisoning, and all those great things.
I always thought it would be fun to go and chop down our own tree, but my dad always said, no, it's a lot harder than you think to chop down your own tree.
Oh,
We
I've
did
done
that.
that.
My family did that one year, and it was not fun. I mean, it was fun for us kids because we didn't have to do anything. But now that I think about it as an adult, watching my dad, mom, and older sister trying to lug that tree up through yeah.
I think it's genius marketing on the part of tree farmers, that they don't have to do the work. They charge you to do it for yourself.
Yes, since we lived
Brilliant.
in Chicago suburbs growing up, we wound up, just having to buy trees. But at the same time, anytime we were up in Michigan, anytime, like around Thanksgiving or near Christmas, that we would wind up going out in the woods and cutting down a tree for my grandparents and some of my uncles. So we would spend a day going out there to come back, bring back 4 or 5 trees. And my grandpa was, just a woodsman in general. He was always out hiking in the woods. So, yeah, he usually had already tagged which trees he was going to bring back for the next 4 or 5 Christmases.
I knew a guy that grew evergreens. He planted, a couple dozen of them in his backyard, and yeah, he would cut one down every year for a Christmas tree, but he always planted like 2 or 3 in its place. Eventually, his lot became so covered with Christmas trees he had to stop and only plant one each year.
My brother was an over-the-road trucker for a couple of decades, and one year he did try it as a business. That he actually went up to Michigan on my grandparents' property was a 40-acre homestead, so most of it was still wooded. And he just went up there one year and brought back like 80 Christmas trees and rented a lot to sell them. I'm not quite sure how the venture turned out, but since he only did it the one year, I'm guessing he didn't make as much off of it as he expected to.
There's a good comment in the chat from Commander 401 about Jeremiah 10, verses 1 through 5. Hear what the Lord says to you, people of Israel. This is what the Lord says. Do not learn the ways of the nations or be terrified by the signs of the heaven. For the practices of the people are worthless. They cut down a tree out of the forest, and a craftsman shapes it with his chisel, and they adorn it with silver and gold, and they fasten it with hammers and nails so it will not totter. It's exactly describing a Christmas tree. And I always thought that was weird that we had Christmas trees because, the Bible kind of says you're not supposed to do that.
Yeah. I was looking that up too when you started reading it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and what Ox is saying here about the Christmas tree farms, that, yeah, I'm sure if they want to get the nice symmetrical ones, they have to be, tended to.
Yeah, I can't imagine that it's as easy as just planting a tree and walking away.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jenny.
Hey, sorry.
That's okay.
I think one of the things that I really dislike about Christmas is really the capitalist focus on the gifts. And like as an adult, I'm like less about the gifts, but I see these kids, Mommy, I want this for Christmas. I want that for Christmas. I want this for Christmas. And it's like, it's become this thing where kids, I don't know, let me see.
Well, it might be nice if we could refocus Santa instead of necessarily being about kids being good or bad, about him just, giving things to the poor. And that's, I think, the truest mark of charity is when somebody gives anonymously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it would be nice if we could refocus Santa as just being a character who would anonymously leave gifts for poor families.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the adults that Santa was watching and making black marks against, and figure out some way to slap bad parents upside the head.
On the other hand, I've also seen parents use Christmas as a reason for telling kids to wait. Come about September, you start asking, Mom, can I have that? Mom, can I have that? And well, Christmas is coming soon. You can ask for it for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then once Christmas was over, it was, Mom, can I have that? Well, you just got all that stuff for Christmas. You don't need anything new now.
Mm-hmm.
And so it kind of kept the kids quiet for about 5 months.
I guess that's a matter of how long you could stretch it out for.
3 months before and 2 months after.
Has anybody noticed that I think I don't watch cable news or anything like that, Fox News or whatever, so I really have no idea, but it seems to me, based on internet observations, is the war on Christmas isn't being talked about much this year.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I haven't heard anybody say a word about it.
Well, because the war on Christmas was mostly something that was always fueled by Fox News.
Hmm.
And I think that through the fallout from Trump getting out of office is that Fox News has lost a lot of its viewers now.
Mm. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of good, except that they've more or less been replaced by what's that OEN.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's not like they went from Fox to any reputable news source. They didn't go up, they went down.
Yeah, they had to find something that was even further into their cognitive bias.
OAN, overreaching assholes and Nazis. They are really bad. They're like National Enquirer and Fox had a baby and put it on steroids.
I have been curious about the Krampus thing because, it was definitely a character I never heard about growing up. And does seem to be that, it's a more recent addition to the U.S. Christmas that you're seeing this character creep around more often.
Oh, really?
I
I've
think it's only been
not heard him anywhere.
I think it's only been in like the last 5 years or so that Krampus has begun to proliferate. I don't think it's such a bad idea.
I think it actually started in more than that because, again, back in the aughts, when I was taking care of kids, I started to see the character showing up in some of the newer cartoons about Christmas that they would start at least mentioning Krampus. But still, that's only been like in the last 20 years that he started to be introduced into popular culture.
Well, it's a German
man.
character. It's a German tradition. For people who aren't aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't studied or tried to memorize Krampus. It's basically a creature that, like Santa Claus, is keeping record of what you're doing during the year. And if you're bad, the Krampus comes around and, captures you, puts you in a bag, and eats you. Isn't that it or something like that? Really bizarre.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, my father's side of the family was Polish, so we did learn about Black Peter.
Oh, what's that?
Basically, four bad children would come and basically bind you up in your own blankets and beat you with switches in your bed.
Oh, how scrumptious. God. And this is in the name of the Lord, right?
Yeah, well, it was the carrot and stick thing, and it was literally a stick. But if you were good, Santa brought you presents. If you were bad, Black Peter would come and whip you with his tree branch.
And people wonder why society is so fucked up.
Well, that was a popular part of it, for the Slavic and some parts of Russian.
Yeah, they have a lot of issues over Black Peter. From what I understand,
this is the first I've heard of Black Peter.
Oh yeah, if you look up Sinterklaas, the Dutch version of Santa, he has a character that runs around him called what was it? Zawi Pete, which is basically a white dude in blackface running around with Santa.
Are you serious? In blackface?
Yeah, hold on.
Oh,
let me
no.
share my screen. I'll show you some pictures.
But it's not blackface. It's not blackface in the sense that we understand blackface as a thing about African Americans, but black being evil and
well, that's the thing. It was
that sort of thing back then.
They try to rationalize it by saying that what it is it's a he was a chimney sweep.
And
he's covered in.
That makes sense.
He's a chimney sweep covered in soot, but like, where the heck is this window? There it is.
So So
But
Yeah,
I mean,
I
like,
don't
look at the.
remember any of the stories about Black Peter having any kind of a racial angle.
But
So
I
he's
mean,
But it was
basically
come on,
just
look at
that
this one. Look at this
basically he
one.
was Santa's his
okay.
dark twin, that he was dressed identical to Santa, except his outfit was all black.
Now, this is traditionally how people go around as Pete in those. Where the heck is? There it is. I'm trying to find StreamYards, the StreamYards window, so I can. Oh, yeah, I mean, look. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I would agree. Krampus does certainly sound kind of sick by our current standards, but we're also talking about the era or the parts of the world that invented Grimm's fairy tales. Good God, are those ever dark? If you read the originals,
Yep.
The witches eat children and boil them in oil and stuff. It's like, geez,
Most of the
Louise.
original Grimm's fairy tales were a pretty simple moral. If you go out in the woods alone, something will eat you.
Mm-hmm.
Tiny Captain, I'm not familiar about the part with the ravens. Maybe that's something you could educate me on.
What are the Black Ravens about?
Well, Tiny Captain put up this comment: the origin of Black Peter are the Black Ravens that were helping Saint Nicholas, tricking the devil to become his slave.
Oh, well, sounds like it
So
could be admirable.
Yeah, in 2018, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the SCP Foundation and that lore set. It's basically just fan fictions of monsters. And they have one, and it's SCP-4666, and it is the Yule Man. And through a 12-day period, in areas that can receive snow, so above a certain latitude and longitude, he will go to houses, and if you're lucky, he'll leave behind sick and twisted presents. If you're unlucky, he'll kill your entire family, kidnap you, and take you to his workshop, where he forces you to make toys out of the children that have died, or the leftovers of the children that he's eaten. And once you can no longer make toys, he'll either eat you or turn you into a toy. So, like,
well, that's a dark tale.
Well, the SCP Foundation is pretty dark, but like kids get things like soccer balls made out of skin, the skin of a child, or a hairbrush made out of the teeth of various children, that kind of stuff.
That's crazy.
It's creepy, yeah.
How far back does this go to?
Well, the Yule Man was generated in 2018, apparently.
What?
But it's basically based off of it's like a Krampus type character, except ramped up like 7 notches.
Now that's disturbing.
Well, the whole thing behind the SCP Foundation is the multiverse idea, and that it's this organization that they find anomalous creatures and they capture them and keep people safe from them. And they have like the Yule Man, and then there's the statue where it's a statue that if you stop looking at it, it moves lightning fast and snaps your neck.
Well,
it's basically a horror website if you're into horror
okay,
stuff.
kind of getting back here.
Yeah, I'll take us off topic if I'm not careful.
Then I covered this in Granny's chat last night, but as far as Santa's elves go, people, you need to get your character races straight.
Yes.
Elves were like more human size. Actually, they were usually taller than humans, usually like 6 foot. And they either had a disregard or an utter disdain for people, that they either ignored people altogether or, would toy with them for amusement. They were not very helpful to people. Now, the little guys that are only like, a foot or 2 tall,
Gnomes?
yeah, are the Scandinavian forest gnomes, because they were actually known for like repairing things around the farm when nobody was looking. So these are the ones who would be much more likely to be making gifts for people.
I think those are the dudes that taught Santa.
Yep.
I don't know why people came up with the elf on the shelf. I mean, we already had Santa watching you. Why do you need an elf in addition?
Yeah, I had wondered where the elf on the shelf came from.
I think it served just as a visual cue to paranoia.
Although I love all the takeoffs on it, like Vader on a tater, and
X-wing
Shrimp
on
on
a
a Barbie.
swing.
yep.
Shrimp on a Barbie.
That doesn't quite rhyme there.
I think it started from a book, if I remember correctly.
Well, there's a Dr. Seuss book that I used to read to my kids. It's called There's a Wocket in My Pocket. And one of the pages of that book says there's a Zelf up on the shelf. I have talked to him myself.
Yep.
And it's all about these strange creatures that are all throughout the house. And they all have some kind of rhyme involved. And so I always wondered if that's where it came from.
That almost
I
sounds
remember
like
that book.
Shel Silverstein.
Yeah, I remember most of the Dr. Seuss books, actually.
I think it's basically just a visual reminder, like when kids ask, "Oh, how does Santa know what we're doing?" Oh, because he has an elf on our shelf. Every house
Yeah.
has that elf.
I think that's probably where it came from, was kids asking how Santa could watch every house in the world.
See, I've always wanted to have an elf on the shelf and put it in extremely compromising positions each night.
Were you the one that posted in the Twitter chat the elf and the Barbie?
Yes.
Ah,
Well, I
okay.
stole
Of
it from someone
course.
else, but yes, I did post it.
Yeah, I like that one.
I read a webcomic that's got anthropomorphic characters, and it's basically everybody's a cat, and it's called Litterbox Comics. And so they have an elf on the shelf too, but it's a small hairless cat.
Mm,
It's a Sphinx cat in an elf suit.
mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I did intend to keep this short tonight, so I think we're going to wrap it up here. We'll go around if anyone has anything to shill. Granny, you were saying that at the beginning of the show you want to recap when you'll have something coming out, because we've got a lot of people in the audience that weren't here at the time.
Okay. I have a video comparing Santa Claus to the Christian God that will get released either tomorrow or Saturday. It's currently still uploading. It's been uploading for the last few hours. The first upload failed. Let's see, it's at 18% now on the second try. And I may or may not have a live stream on Wednesday. I usually have live streams on Wednesdays, but I've got a few things going on in my personal life that I've got to be ready to get moving on, and so I'm not concentrating on those right now. But I might have a few friends and just have some time to just talk and just enjoy each other's company. And then I'm also doing the 24-hour thing with Purple, and from 2 to 4 on Christmas Day, I'll be streaming.
Hey,
Okay.
Granny,
Hmm?
I would love to see you on the midnight version of Purple Show. You could stay up real late and get yourself
I
all
don't stay up
liquored
that
up
late.
and-
That's too late for me.
Oh, come
I
on.
suppose I
Okay,
could take
does,
a nap in the afternoon, so I could
Jenny,
stay.
Kitty, do either of you have anything you want to plug?
No,
Your
not
show
really.
tonight at midnight.
Okay, yeah, Jenny and I will be back here in just about 3 hours at 10 p.m. Central.
Oh.
So
Okay.
yeah,
10 p.m.
and
Central.
I do still need about another half dozen people willing to take time slots on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to fill out the schedule here. So we will be running from 5 a.m. on the 24th through 4 a.m. on the 26th to cover Christmas everywhere around the world. So I guess with that, we will see you all in a few hours. Bye-bye, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for being here, chat.